Thank you so much. I know our honorable MP was supposed to go first, and on the way over, he said, maybe, why don't you talk first? So let me give you the context, and I'm going to take you back in time. And through this journey, I'm going to make a conclusion. And I'll tell you what that conclusion is. I think there are going to be only 3 AI superpowers in the world. And it's not going to be Singapore, it's not going to be any small country. It'll be, of course, India, China, and the US. And why I'm going to make my case to you, why this bill is pivotal to making that happen. Had this bill not happened, we would not have the potential to get there. And this is a slightly circuitous journey, so stay with me for a few minutes. I'm going to make 5 or 6 points and to get to this conclusion. First, I'll take you back to late 2013, 2014. By that time, it was clear that the digital revolution was going to be upon us. In fact, there were applications, some of you may remember. Does anybody remember News Hunt here? Bharat Matrimony? Zoho? These were consumer apps, Indian consumer apps, Indian business apps, and these companies have gone on to become even more successful. And I used to be an angel investor and a board member in Bharat Matrimony way back in 2007 and 9. That will tell you my vintage. And so it was clear that Bharat is going to adopt digital because we as a society are an open society. We will adopt anything new that is useful to us. But there was a fly in the ointment, as they say. The fly in the ointment was that all these apps that we were talking about were built on digital infrastructure that was going to be foreign. It was app stores, cloud computing infrastructure, AWS used to be very popular then, and things like that were all coming from outside. And there's a worry that took over saying we have the potential, while it looks very promising, we have the potential that we may again become a digital colony as we go forward. Right? So what's the answer to that? So a deep thought revealed a very simple answer to that. And I'm happy to tell you that has stood the test of time over the 10 years. And that was that if India could own the digital infrastructure that mediates the flow of people, flow of money, and flow of information, because then we will be fine. And you know what? At that time, we had to give this concept a name. That concept was named in a meeting that I had the privilege to be part of, and that concept is today called India Stack. How many of you here have not heard of India Stack? Everybody has heard of India Stack. India Stack in its essence is actually this digital infrastructure. And saying that this digital infrastructure should be Indian meant that it should be owned by the government. It should be owned by the public. So the idea that it should be public digital infrastructure was an idea that was born in 2014. But at that time, it was just an idea. There was nothing else there. Even eKYC did not exist at that time. And eKYC, e-sign, flow of people. And that allowed us to issue bank accounts to millions of people. We went from 17% to 81% in a very short amount of time. We are the largest user of e-sign in the world. Do you know e-sign is a national standard, but all the people who provide e-sign services are private players. Many of them startups here in Bangalore. It is an example of public infrastructure privately provisioned. Bangalore airport is public infrastructure privately provisioned. Chennai airport is public infrastructure, publicly provisioned. Which is a better airport? Exactly. So this idea that not only should we have digital infrastructure, not only should it be public in nature, but it should also be wherever possible, privately provisioned public infrastructure is an idea that took root. And so the first layer was flow of people. The second layer that we thought of was flow of money, right? And that required work. Work on UPI started here in Bangalore in September of 2014. It was launched, as you know, by PM Modi, the BHIM app, December 30th, 2016. And of course, UPI has been a success story, in a big way after that, right? But along the way, there was a first attempt in solving this flow of information problem. And that is DigiLocker. Here, is there anybody who doesn't use DigiLocker? DigiLocker was launched by the PM on 1st July 2015. It was our first attempt to think about the flow of information. It's gone on to be very successful, but also realized that there were limitations in this approach. And the limitations was that it worked very well for documents, but information is not always documents. And an idea took root that we needed to think more broadly about this infrastructure in a way that had not been thought about anywhere else in the world. And so could we copy what the Americans were doing? No. You know why? Because Americans are very good in providing flow of information, but in that flow of information, they have very little respect for the privacy of the individual. And we wanted to make sure that the privacy of the information was in the hands of the individual. They controlled it. Now, the Europeans do a very good job of privacy of the individuals, but you know what? They do a terrible job in letting innovation happen in the ecosystem. So we didn't have and China model, of course, is not even copyable. Don't even get me started on China, right? So the question was, we had neither the opportunity to copy Americans, nor the opportunity to copy Europeans, and we had to find a system which would give us a balance, a good balance, without compromising the privacy. It would also allow us to give innovation. The first system in the world for data economy that allows you to do that is the Indian system. It combines, it gives you full privacy, but it also allows our entrepreneurs to be able to innovate on the back of information that we have. To allow for that to happen, a new concept had to be invented, and that is techno-legal regulation. So the bill that we see, this Puttaswamy judgment happened in July. There was a committee that was set up to draft the bill. But also on 16th of August, this anniversary of which is coming up in a few days, 16th of August 2017, a technical system was launched called DEPA. DEPA is Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture. How many of you have heard of this? Very few. But how many of you have heard of account aggregator? I see more hands going up. Account aggregator is built on the DEPA architecture. While the bill was being cooked, luckily for us, all the financial regulators led by RBI decided to pilot this system in the financial world. And so today in India, we have a system that the world can see, which is called the account aggregator system, where you control your financial data, and only under your control, with your electronic consent, can it be shared to anybody else, a lender or any other financial service providers. And this system was piloted from 2017 to 2019. Then a public pilot took place from July 2019, and it was formally launched in the public in September 2021. Today, it covers more than 1.1 billion bank accounts. It is growing. The number of consents that we have are growing at 32% month on month. 19 million people used it in this month alone as we go forward. And so this is a system which is growing very rapidly. So therefore this idea, the new idea that had to be born was techno-legal regulation. Can we regulate the market behavior of people, not only by public policy, but also by public technology? Public policy, public technology coming together will allow us to create good behavior in the market for people. That is called techno-legal regulation, right? And think of it, potter's wheel, you want to shape clay, you can't shape clay with one hand. You can shape clay only when you put both hands on the wheel. This idea of techno-legal regulation is an Indian innovation across the world. And then the bill started taking shape. Our Honorable Minister has been intimately involved in this, shaped every part of this. There was a JPC involved. Our Honorable MP was part of that JPC. He made sure that this view that was being espoused was pulled into the conversation, so that we were creating something that was going to be techno-legal in nature. So this is the innovation that India has brought in so far, right? This is not something vaporware, because a version of this is running as the account aggregator that you see today. Now, what does it mean? What's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen in the future is, because what this bill enables, I'll give you a very, very simple example so that you can relate to this. Every company, let's take a company that you're all familiar with, railways, right? IRCTC. They issue railway tickets to us, right? So they have some personal information about me. they also have aggregate information, seasonal patterns. Where do people travel? When do they travel? When do we see, more travel in which season to which city and so on and so forth. They have aggregate information. If they were in the US, what they would have done is they would have taken this personal information and they would have resold it to anybody, right? Because in the US that is allowed. Or if they were in Europe, they couldn't have given it to anybody, even if you wanted them to give it to them. But in India, it is possible for your personal information to be shared to somebody else, but only with your consent, only with your electronic consent. And that electronic consent system that we have is organs. Remember this. It's open, it's revocable, it's granular, it's auditable. It notifies you when something happened, and it's fully secure. No other country has that system. Second, if you want to look at the seasonal pattern, let's say Make My Trip, Clear Trip, come to them and say, hey, I want to look at this aggregate data. Will you share your aggregate data with you? They would share this aggregate data if they were in the US. But what if one of those companies de-anonymized this data? They gave it in an anonymized form, but anonymization is an art form. It's not a science. You can de-anonymize that data. And what if they de-anonymize that data? What would be the consequences of that? Damage is done by that. Right? Now, in the US, they control it by having very large penalties. You've heard of that you'll sue somebody and then bad things will happen. India, our legal system doesn't allow us to do that. So that deterrence is not there at all. So we needed to invent a system where technology will provide us computational guarantees on privacy on aggregate data. That system is called the DEPA training cycle. How many of you are techies here? Go and check the system out, depa.world. Now, why is it called depa.world? Why is this Indian system put under a thing called depa.world? You know why? Because even today, other countries want this system. We are the only game in town that has a data economy system which balances innovation and privacy, techno-legal in nature, implemented for millions of people and working at scale. And the law, what it does is it provides now this enabling environment for this to explode as we go forward. Now, what does that explosion mean? That explosion means that all of us here, a few years from now, maybe not even years, maybe a year or two from now, will use some form of AI to be a better student, to be a better teacher, right? On the other hand, unfortunately, what is also going to happen is that gaming, gambling, even pornography will use AI to distract our youth in a way which is worse than what happens today. And we have the world's largest population of young people. So we need to find regulation to do that. This is why China bans games after 8 o'clock. you can't consume games in the Chinese system after 8 o'clock because they're trying to protect their young people from getting distracted. We can't use the Chinese way for making that happen. But we need a techno-legal regulation to be able to prevent that distraction economy from becoming more powerful. And the augmentation economy becoming powerful, but becoming powerful on the back of AI models that are built in India, not AI models that are coming from China and the US, right? For that, who will own the AI models? Are the people who own the data which feeds those models, which trains this model. There are only going to be 4 continents that can have continental scale data for training AI. US, of course, will do it. China, of course, will do it. Europe is lost at this point in time. India has just put in place with this act a system that unlocks in a completely privacy-preserving way continental scale data for Indian entrepreneurs to build world-class models from India. That is the reason why India will be an AI power of the future. We have our own problems to solve with AI. We have our own data that we can use to train our models to solve that problem. And we have the talent, all of you. In fact, the most famous AI paper which is driving this revolution is a 2017 paper on Transformer. Count the number of Indians in that paper. The lead person is himself Ashish Vaswani, an Indian. Indians are driving the AI world today, even as we speak. So we have the talent. We are going to bring all of this together to solve our hard problems with Indian AI based on Indian data, and thereby be a shining example for the rest of the world. Thank you so much to both of you for helping laying the foundation for this in a very powerful way. So we have a good India to look forward to in the future. Thank you so much.